Just a quick video today, guys. I've been kind of looking into ray tracing in the First Descendant, and I've come up with some interesting results that I wanted to share with you all. Well, I know we have Lumen reflections, but then the ray tracing setting also adds RTX ambient occlusion and RTX direct illumination. Even though it's not advertised, going from high to ultra on the ray tracing actually adds proper ray traced reflections. But there's a caveat, and we're going to look at that in a little bit. But in this map, if we were to turn on ray tracing to ultra, you get some nice deep ambient occlusion and some nice proper shadows. It definitely adds more depth into the image, and it looks really nice. I have to admit, I do like it. Like for example, if we go into the city and you look at that pipe to the left, turning on ray tracing adds proper shadowing underneath the pipe, as you would expect it to look, right? There would be a shadow underneath the pipe, even in the middle of the day. This mountain shadow, for example, here, if we turn ray tracing on, it does look more realistic, a bit more diffused, as it probably would in real life. But you also get that overall like yellowish glow of the surrounding environment with the ray tracing on, which can look actually pretty nice. The more realistic shadows and ambient occlusion do look very nice. It's still not perfect, and there are some bugs that I'm going to point out here. Like the grass, for example. You can lose some of it or all of it by toggling ray tracing off and on. You can actually try this yourself. If you load the game with ray tracing set to ultra and then you set it to off, you'll lose all grass. At least that happens to me. Now, as far as the different tiers of ray tracing, well, here we have ray tracing off, and we'll set it to high. The shadows definitely improve. You have the mountain behind you casting a shadow, and you have the tree casting a shadow. And if we take it from high to ultra, the shadow quality is refined even more realistic. Now if we slide into the main city, if we turn ray tracing on, you can see the belly of the ship. It looks more realistic with those shadows. And if we look at that big structure in the back, with ray tracing set to ultra, we have the sun shining from our right, and it's middle of the day, so the shadows glow a bit as well. They're not as dark. And if we disable the ray tracing and set it to off, the shadows and AO look a bit too dark. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. It still looks pretty good, even with RT off. Now, before we move on to the reflections, I just wanted to touch base on the second map, which is this deserty area. It's actually not really all that noticeable. For example, right now we have ray tracing off, and this is ray tracing ultra. Not really much of a difference, if I'm being honest. And I looked at a few other examples as well. Didn't spend too much time because I didn't really notice that much of a difference turning ray tracing to ultra or off in the open world of this map anyway. Let's go ahead and take a look at the reflections though, because this is perhaps a bit more interesting for me anyway. We're going to start with the ray tracing turned off completely, and then we're also going to go to the reflection setting and set it to the lowest, which is low. That controls the lumen reflections. As you can see here in this piece of glass, there is no reflection of any kind, no screen space, no lumen, no ray tracing, no nothing. Let's throw the reflections to medium. Now we get some very low quality lumen reflections with a screen space layer on top. Very interesting. Screen space looks fine, but again, it's screen space. You're not gonna get the reflections unless it's on the camera. Let's set reflections to high. You know, it kind of looks the same. I figured it'd be a bit more stable, a bit higher resolution, but it more or less looks the same. You get that low quality lumen with the screen space layer on top again. Let's now try ultra, which is the max. You know what? It more or less looks the same. It should look better in my opinion with ultra lumen reflections. That doesn't look very good. You know what, guys? They've actually nerfed the lumen reflections because the game was just updated. Now this is older footage I captured a few days ago trying to make the same video, and this here is with no lumen reflections. So the reflection setting is set to low. And this is what medium setting looks like. It already looks way better than the high and ultra. And this is high. It's stable to begin with. So they've nerfed the Lumen reflections, guys. And here's a quick side-by-side with the current version of the game on the left and prior to Hotfix on the right. Definitely a big difference. Well, it is what it is. What are you gonna do? Right now we're running reflections on Ultra, so this is as good as it can get for a Lumen currently. It is a bit unstable. That wasn't the case before. But let's go ahead and turn on ray tracing and see what happens. Let's try ray tracing high. And just to show you, with ray tracing high, you do not get ray trace reflections. It's only when you go from high to ultra that you get reflections and improved shadow quality and ambient occlusion. And with ray tracing set to ultra, now we get proper ray traced reflections that look pretty nice. But we do still get that screen space layer on top as well, but the ray trace reflections will reflect NPCs and players as well. As you can see, it reflects everything that's above us. Let's try turning it off. As you can see, we're now left with that low quality Lumen reflections, which don't look very good. Let's take a look at another scenario. Here we have ray tracing off. All we get is Lumen, and I can already remember that this looks a bit worse than it did prior to the patch. They've definitely nerfed the Lumen reflections, it looks like. But this is without ray trace reflections. Let's turn it on. And as you can see, we get way better reflections, including players and shadows. But we also get better ambient occlusion and shadows overall. So yeah, this looks really good. I do miss getting proper ray trace reflections. I think Unreal Engine 5 has kind of ruined things in a way because games look kind of samey, and the software Lumen is just not very good. It doesn't look right to me. But one thing I've noticed though is that we do have a little bit of flicker here and there, like right here on this bracket or whatever you want to call it. We can turn on ray reconstruction, and that should take care of that. Let's check it out. Let's try it. And yeah, it definitely looks more stable with ray reconstruction. I think overall the reflections look a bit crisper too. We also have ray trace reflections on the metal that this whole structure is built on as well. Let's take a quick look at that, and then I'll point out the caveat. Let's take a look at this hallway here. We have reflections to ultra, so Lumen and screen space layer on top, ray tracing off. Let's put ray tracing to ultra. And right away we get a bunch of detail added, but it does look a bit unstable and flickery. We can try using ray reconstruction here. It should clean that up pretty nicely. Let's go ahead and turn that on now. Oh wow, that is definitely noticeable. It's a lot more stable and more defined. Now for the caveat, I was talking about ray trace reflections. So in this game, they're kind of limited. They're not like in other games like Control or Deliver Us the Moon I was playing the other day. That game has really nice ray trace reflections. I do genuinely feel Unreal Engine 5 has dumbed down the ray tracing with the Lumen. Can be hit or miss, especially software Lumen. But let's take a look at this small body of water. Here we have ray tracing set to ultra, and this is ray tracing off. As you can see, we lost that nice ambient occlusion, but we got our screen space reflections, and there is no ray trace reflections on bodies of water in this game. Strangely enough, I don't know why they did it this way, but they're not there. You do get some Lumen, yes, with screen space layer on top. Let's set it back to ultra, and we get that nice ambient occlusion and shadows, and the reflections look the same more or less. But there's another thing I found out. Ray reconstruction can actually affect the screen space reflections somewhat, somehow. Let's go ahead and turn on ray reconstruction on top of ultra ray tracing. Look at the reflections just kind of went missing, at least the majority of them. So that is somehow affecting the reflections. I don't know. It's kind of strange. But here's another body of water. Here we have ray tracing off and reflections set to ultra, so Lumen with a layer of screen space. And if we set the reflection setting to low, we lose all reflections, as you would expect. And let's go back to ultra reflections and try to turn on ray tracing to ultra. You'll see that we're not going to get any additional reflections here. Oh, we got a surprise though. But yeah, it still looks the same. So no ray trace reflections on bodies of water, guys. That's just how it is. We only get some software low quality Lumen reflections with a layer of screen space on top. So I found this interesting. That's why I wanted to kind of make this video, because I haven't seen other games that do reflections in this way. It seems to be limited to certain scenarios and certain materials. I don't know, maybe the cost of performance was too much if they did it on bodies of water too. But I have to say that with the more recent games, Unreal Engine 5 has made a lot of these games look very samey, and the Lumen can sometimes be hit or miss. Like, it's definitely not as good as hardware accelerated, even Lumen itself, right? But devs don't seem to want to use that for whatever reason. But software Lumen is not up to par with hardware accelerated ray tracing, at least from what I've seen. It's not. It just doesn't look as good. The reflections in Deliver Us the Moon from 2018, for example, look way better. And that was an Unreal Engine 4 game. But anyway, that'll be it for this video. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and leave a like if you like the video, and consider subscribing if you want to see more content. But I'll see you on the next one. Peace.